Chief.
Authority.
The regular meetings of the El Centro City Council a successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency / Successor Housing Agency for September 4th, 2018, are now called to order. Prior to the roll call, I would like to explain to the public and enter in the record that this meeting is being conducted pursuant to California Government Code, Section 54953, Section B, concerning teleconferencing of meetings. Mayor Villegas Walker will be participating in the meeting via teleconference from 290 13th Street, Apartment 3, Brooklyn, New York, 11215. In accordance with the Ralph M. Brown Act, this location has been identified in the notice and agenda for this meeting. The location is ADA accessible and open to the public. The public shall have the opportunity to address the City Council as successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency and successor housing agency at this teleconference location pursuant to Government Code Section 564954.3. I, Mayor Pro Tem Garcia, would like to ask Mayor Villegas Walker to respond to the following questions. Mayor Villegas Walker, are you able to hear our proceedings on this end?
Yes,
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
yes,
Was the agenda posted as required at your location 72 hours in advance of this meeting?
yes,
Is your location such that any member of the public could participate in this teleconference from your location if he or she wished to do so?
yes,
Are there any members of the public present wishing to participate?
no,
Now, I would like to confirm that all council members can clearly hear Mayor Villegas Walker.
Yes.
Yes.
That's an affirmative. I would like to remind all when speaking that you speak into the microphone. I would like now to report that any vote taken during this meeting will be taken by a roll call vote. Mrs. Caldwell, please call the roll.
Councilmember Cardenas.
Present.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Silva.
Present.
Mayor Villegas Walker.
here,
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Present. I need to address the issue of a quorum for this meeting. Yes, there is a quorum of the City Council present in the council chamber here in El Centro, so the meeting can proceed. Now, if we can ask Councilmember Silva for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you guys can remain standing for the invocation. Precious Lord Jesus, thank you again for this day, Lord. We just ask that you continue to be with our country, with our county, and our city, Lord. And Lord, that we continue to do your work. And it is in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Now we get to move on to the fun stuff. We have a wonderful proclamation for Library Card Sign-Up Month. If we can have the representative come up.
Mayor Pro Tem, there is no
I'm
reportable.
sorry, closed
It's fine. There is no reportable
there are
action
no
from closed
reports.
session.
Sorry, I skipped ahead. I was so excited about the library. No, come back up. It's okay. No, come back up. That was my mistake. That was my error. We had nothing to do in closed session, so now we can come up to the important stuff. This is the important stuff. I look back at the time when I spent my youth in the library. It's so important. It's so important. And I'm so happy to be the one to be able to give this to you. So, a library card is the most important school supply of all. Libraries play an important role in the education and development of children. Library programs serve students of all ages, from early literacy to homework help to GED classes. Libraries empower all people to pursue their interests, discover their passions, and achieve their highest potential as learners and citizens. Librarians bring communities together, creating welcoming and inclusive spaces for students of all backgrounds to learn together. Libraries are constantly transforming and expanding their services to meet the needs of the communities they serve. Libraries promote equity, making digital technology and information equally accessible to all. Now therefore, I, Edward Garcia, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of El Centro, State of California, do hereby proclaim September 2018 as Library Card Sign-Up Month in the City of El Centro, and encourage everyone to sign up for their own library card today. And I would like some comments. Because, sir, your reputation precedes itself.
Thank you. We have decided that we would go along with this proclamation to be able to have the library library card sign-up month in September. That's something that happens every year in September, and we decided we wanted to take point. We have presently about 1,800 people signed up with library cards in our library. So we'd like to increase that by a large number, and we're going to do everything we can to do that this month to encourage people to get their library card. We have new computers at the library, so those people who want to come and see it, you need to come and take a look at our library and how it looks. We made some changes. And
That's
we're excited.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And I, for one, will be taking my 3 boys to go sign up.
So the proclamation is the beginning. So we look forward to a new facility or remodeled or expanded facility as such.
Measure P.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the beginning. We know we have potential. We got the space. I guess funding is the part we need to work on. But it's worth waiting for and worth taking the time to have a nice facility. And we deserve it in the city of El Centro.
You know, I think we can speak for the changes in libraries nowadays. They've become more multimedia centers, but
Of
we're
course.
committed as a council. That was one of our big objectives. And I think that my colleagues agree with me that the library is a big priority.
Of course.
Because when you educate the children of our community, you really have no bounds.
Of course, it's a meeting place. It's a museum. The library. It's a meeting room space. I mean, you look at the libraries today, and like you say, they're multiple type service facilities that can serve a community. So we look forward to having something like that here in El Centro. Thank you.
Hi, Richard Ryan. I am on the library board. Just a quick reminder, libraries are great places for children, but they're also great places for adults. And we're talking about lifelong learning, and you can pick up books, you can check out small business information, you could get tax information. There's all kinds of stuff that libraries are good for adults as well. And we look forward to a new multimedia facility. So thanks a lot. Thanks for your support. Do
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
it.
Go ahead.
Just want to say one more thing. September the 20th, which is Thursday this month, we're having our first family event at the library for all families to bring yourself and your children. We're going to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're going to have games, activities, crafts, refreshments, and mariachi. So
Wow.
please come and
What time is that going to be, Mr. Banks? Mr. Banks? What-
5:30 to 7.
Marcella, have we put out a notice?
Yes, we're in the process of actually doing that.
Okay, I
Yes,
think we need to
definitely.
focus
Yes,
on
we
that
are, we
event.
will.
I
Definitely.
think that'll definitely draw a good crowd.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Now, I would like to come down with the council so we can take a picture with your plaque.
No, Chamber of Commerce. I don't see anybody from Chamber of Commerce. Who's the president? Terry, huh? I don't think we have anybody from the Chamber of Commerce.
So we go to scheduled public comment. Is anybody here for the El Centro Chamber of Commerce monthly report? Don't see anybody here. Now we move on to the U.S. Border Patrol presentation by Border Community Liaison John Ward. Welcome.
I'd like to thank you all for giving me an opportunity to speak. I'll be brief. I know you have a very full agenda. But as a community liaison, what I do is I do a lot of community outreach. I specifically try to engage different governmental agencies and act as a liaison between the United States Border Patrol in El Centro and intergovernmental agencies, as well as community groups, civic organizations, and so on. Actually, sir, Mayor Pro Tem, I believe I met you once briefly before at the El Centro Chamber when I gave. So this is old news to you, but and again, I'm just going to kind of just fly through it real quickly, just to touch on a few slides. And also, I'd like to extend an invitation, an open invitation to the council, to everybody, to attend a maybe a little bit longer, like presentation and station tour of El Centro Border Patrol Station. It kind of, I mean, the more, we get the public involved, we tend to work out of the public eye. We're not always, unless you find yourself down by the border, often the public doesn't see us. So just kind of, I'm trying to find opportunities where we can engage with the public more. They can see what we're doing, maybe demystify what we're doing a little bit. And as taxpayers, see where your money's going, see how it's being spent. With that, I'm just going to fly through a couple quick slides here, again, due to time constraints. There's really a couple that I would like to just touch on briefly, since we're talking, as I was speaking about how your money is being spent. Everyone is, I'm sure, well aware of the border wall, proposed border wall, in areas that have actually been actively under construction. Calexico being, and parts of El Centro being actually the first in the nation to start construction on it. And this chart up here just kind of shows a pretty good breakdown. It's actually very telling. It goes from all the way from 1993 through fiscal year 2018, to date. And it shows our apprehensions. And the interesting thing about this just shows, it highlights the value of infrastructure and how it actually directly impacts what we're doing. When you go see that sudden spike there in the traffic patterns in the late 1990s, what that actually represents is when we started receiving more traffic because they started adding infrastructure in the mid-1990s to San Diego, which prior to that was the busiest sector in the nation. So that basically pushed the traffic farther eastward to us. Then we started adding some additional infrastructure, fencing, vehicle barricades, and so on. And that continued to push the traffic east, and that's why you see that gradual drop-off like that. Currently, we're going to, if you look at the numbers for 2017 and what we're at right now at 2018, we're going to very easily surpass 2017. We've seen a market increase in foreign nationals from Central American countries, from India, and so on. So, again, I'll be brief. I know you folks have a lot to get to tonight, and I won't really have time to get into the nuts and bolts of this, but I would really enjoy giving you guys a more thorough presentation and tour of our station and tour of our just entire operating areas. So with that, I'll close.
First and foremost, I'd like to defer to council members that have comment.
Yes.
I just want to say we really appreciate, everything that you guys do. I know that we've lent this chamber here for events, Border Patrol events, and
Yes.
so, we do appreciate everything you guys have done. And, anytime there's opportunities for outreach and just public education in general about Border Patrol, you'll find that there's a unanimous consensus from not only our council, but our staff in welcoming those opportunities. So if there's collaborative opportunities out there, please don't be shy about reaching out to our mayor or our city manager, Marcela Piedra, and we'd be more than happy to work. We've got a great command staff, chief, police.
Okay.
So if there's any out there collaboratives, we definitely would appreciate that.
I appreciate that, sir. Do you folks have a dedicated public affairs officer or a specific person that handles that type of thing?
I think that's our city manager.
Yes, you can contact our office and we'll make sure to
I'll-
disseminate any information.
I'll be in touch with you because anything that we can do to partner up with you guys, we'd be very interested in doing so. So,
We look forward to that.
thank you.
I think my colleague, Mr. Cardenas, said it very well. I think I certainly appreciate, I think we all appreciate the transparency and the outreach from the Border Patrol to our communities. I think it helps educate the public, and in a time of a lot of divisiveness in our nation, I think that you and the men and women of the Border Patrol are doing a very good job of being transparent and outreaching to the public and really explaining what your purposes are and what your job duties are. So I certainly appreciate it. I know we did have an open house here a few months back, maybe it was last year, I guess, which was pretty well attended. And I think there's a lot of people that had questions about the wall and how that was all working out. And I think a lot of that was put to bed with that presentation. So certainly the outreach is working, and I commend you and your command staff in continuing to do that.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that.
Mr. Silva?
Thank you, and I concur with the comments made by the council. I have a question. I don't know if it's off topic or if you're in a position to be able to answer this question, but I do understand that the new port of entry is going to be opening up fairly soon to traffic northbound.
That's my understanding as well.
So are you in a position to answer questions related to that?
Unfortunately, sir, because the distinction between the two agencies,
Right.
Office of Field Operations, OFO, would be a better agency to direct any questions
Okay.
to regarding the port specifically.
So if you can relay a question for them, or maybe it's a comment from my end, is that I understand again that northbound traffic is going to switch over to the new port fairly soon. And I'm not sure that there's been enough community information outreach to let the community know when that's going to happen. I drive by there periodically, and it looks confusing because, it's new, and anything new, you have to get used to it. But I think that if you can relay that to the proper channels, that I think that they have good communication in the Calexico area, but further north, I think the communication kind of dies down or dwindles down. So if you can recommend that they have a pretty strong community outreach when the time comes, which I hear is pretty fairly soon.
I don't know the exact date, sir, but what I can do is I can contact like my counterpart at the, with OFO there in Calexico and relay this to them, and also perhaps just refer them to you if you have, if, you know, they can give you a call or an email or something, and then they can maybe answer more specific questions or detail more, flesh out more an answer
Yeah.
for you than.
It'd be great to get a tour.
I know that they do that, sir. I know that there's a counterpart for OFO doing this exact same thing essentially that I do. So, and I know that they're involved in the same kind of community outreach that we
Okay,
are. So,
great.
I'll also convey that to them.
Okay. In relation to the Border Patrol, again, good job. I think I concur.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Mayor
Cheryl?
Pro Tem, this is Cheryl. Could I weigh in just real briefly, please?
Of course, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to note that we did have the opportunity to attend the ceremony for the new Border Patrol Chief, Gloria Chavez. And I think it's important to note that she's had an extraordinarily impressive career. I do believe that she is the only woman currently serving as a sector chief for the Border Patrol. And there were a number of dignitaries that were in attendance at that ceremony, including, Mr. Ward or Agent Ward, if you could help me with the correct title for the Border Patrol Chief Provost.
Yes, ma'am.
Who I believe
Yes.
also has a connection with El Centro and was recently sworn in at the federal level, is actually in charge of the entire Border Patrol, United States Border Patrol. Could you comment on that for me, please? Just clarify my recollection of her position.
Of course. No, you hit it right on the head, ma'am. It's Carla Provost was formerly the chief of El Centro sector, and she had been serving prior to quite recently as the acting chief of the Border Patrol in D.C., and she's been made the full chief, permanent chief of the United States Border Patrol. So, I mean, given that, our experiences with her here in El Centro sector, I mean, we're quite proud of that. She is an outstanding chief. She was an outstanding chief at the El Centro, in the El Centro sector, and I have nothing but high hopes and high expectations for her in her new role as chief of the entire patrol.
Yeah.
Ms. Chavez is, I think, cut much of the same cloth. She's, in her short time in El Centro, she's really undertaken some interesting new initiatives, kind of taken some, she's not afraid to make some decisive changes, and it's being reflected. We're very, very pleased. We're very fortunate to have her.
I think it's really important that as we look for role models for particularly our young women in our community, that both of these women be held up as examples of what hard work and dedication, where that can get you in life. So I appreciate, Mr. Ward, or Agent Ward, your additional information, and look for opportunities to showcase what U.S. Border Patrol brings to the entire region. Thank you.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
So I'd just like to close by basically agreeing with all of my colleagues that you have done an exceptional job, and we love what you're doing out here. We love the transparency that we have and the communication that we have. And Mr. Ward, I would tell you that I would love to take a tour
Excellent.
of your
Excellent.
facilities, and I have many friends that are in your rank and file, and they speak nothing but praises about the organizational system that's being run right now. And that right there is something very close to my heart, because when the actual people that are out there on a day-to-day basis have complimentary things to say about the command structure, that means everything.
Oh, well, thank you, yeah. And again, we would be happy to have all of you come for a station tour, come for a border tour. You can see, up close maybe. I know living in a border community, you've seen the border, that's nothing new. But maybe seeing it from a different perspective as part of a tour from some agents, it can give you some insight into how we perform
Absolutely.
our duties. So, again, I'd like to thank you all very much for having me, and I look forward to speaking with you, ma'am, more and finding ways that we might partner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
Now, my role normally is to sit here, but I'm not here today. So, because of that, I missed a little detail, which my colleague pointed out. So I'd like to give a notice to the public. This is a public meeting. If there is an item on the agenda on which you wish to be heard, you're asked to complete a blue speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Well, we already have those. Persons wishing to address the council, successor agency to the RDA, and successor housing agency are not required to identify themselves. However, this information assists the mayor by ensuring that all persons wishing to address the council are recognized, and also assists the city clerk in preparing the city council meeting minutes. When the item is announced and your name is called by the mayor, please step to the podium and state your name for the record, unless the mayor extends the time. There is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address a council, successor agency to the RDA, and successor housing agency concerning any other matter not appearing on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment portion of the agenda. Now, thankfully, we've had a wonderful presentation of public comments that did not wish to bring that about. However, now we have the presentation from Callie Legakis regarding CAL FIRE grants. And if we can please have one of our welcomed constituents.
Perfect. Hi, good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Callie. Last time I was here, we discussed the Urban Forestry Program, and I am now the grant manager for our first CAL FIRE funded program, Imperial Valley Urban Forest. This little clicker here. Okay, so I'd like to start off by explaining kind of the idea behind our urban forestry program and where we'd like to go with it for the city. So the centralized idea was to create 3 different programs within the urban forestry blanket to basically encompass all of the urban forestry needs in the valley. So our first program, Imperial Valley Urban Forest, is a public tree planting of 1,400 trees across the county. It was received by the city of El Centro, and it totals to $1.1 million. Grant number 2 is the El Centro Free Trees Program. It was received by the Friends of El Centro Community Services Foundation, and it totals to $1.6 million. And the last grant, the Imperial Valley Urban Forest Inventory Plan, was received by the city of El Centro and totals to $1.5 million. So together, all 3 of these grants total a nearly $5 million urban forestry program for the city. It is the first bit of urban forestry funding for the entire county, and the city of El Centro holds most of that. So that's a huge accomplishment, and I commend the council for supporting this. So program number 1, the Imperial Valley Urban Forest, as I mentioned, it's 1,400 trees across the county. This is our first public property planting. We partner with each of the 5 cities within the county, and we will plant a certain number of trees within each city. We have a selected number of trees to plant in each of the cities and a selected number as well. With the planting, we also have an education program, the beginning of the Imperial Valley Urban Forestry, Urban Forest Tree Steward Program. Thank you, Stacy. And we also are starting our greenhouse gas mapping program. With that, we will map every tree within the program on our Imperial Valley Urban Forestry Tree Map. Program number 2, which is held by the foundation, is our private tree planting. This is 1,000 trees across private properties in El Centro and amongst school districts. With this planting, we will work with neighboring community members as well as school districts to disperse the trees evenly and plant in disadvantaged communities. What that means are communities and streets and areas that score very high on the EnviroScreen 3.0 map. I will identify our DACs later and exactly how we can find those within the city, but the most important thing to take away from this is all the trees we plant will be in underserviced, disadvantaged areas. And we will also be extending our tree steward program to the tree advocate program, which is phase number 2, and we will be expanding the greenhouse gas program as well.
Excuse me, Callie, how will the private residents be selected to be planted, tree or trees?
Yes, great question. So we're still in the planning phases of that grant. In the conceptual phase of this grant, we decided to have like an application phase where each private resident would be able to apply to the foundation to have a tree or trees planted in their yard. But we might rework that and do kind of more of an on-the-grounds outreach type program to try to get neighbors going door to door to join our program and become part of the community.
Is there any outreach that's being contemplated in Spanish?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
We will have all of our education material in English and Spanish.
Great, thank you.
Great question. And program number 3 is the Imperial Valley Urban Forest Inventory Plan, and this kind of wraps up all of the urban forestry efforts and our plantings together to track all the trees. So in all honesty, if we plant nearly 3,000 trees in the county and we don't track them and we don't know what their environmental benefit is for our county, we're not really doing as well as we could be. So with this inventory program, we're going to be using a dual phase inventory using a commercial inventory program and a virtual inventory program to get both public and private trees inventoried across the county. So as you can see here, this is the breakdown of exactly how much each of the grant is worth. When I mentioned the total amount, that does encompass the matched, which is accounted for in donated labor time from not only city staff, but also volunteers and all tree planting. And with CAL FIRE working through their program, they are incredibly gracious with how they account for the match numbers. And so we've kind of worked through all these numbers, and they do not expect us to give any monetary value to our match number. It's all going to be donated labor time. As you can see here, as I mentioned before, the disadvantaged community map, the little circle is where the Imperial Valley is. So this map is the 2.0 version. In our most recent grants, we did use the 3.0, which is basically the same information. What this takes into consideration is a designated area, and as you can see all the stats there, income, pollution, ozone, air quality, water quality, pesticides, waste, and then it gives that area a score. So in the Imperial Valley, we have a very high score on the bioscreen map, which is not very good for the valley. I mean, it's not very advantageous, but it is advantageous for grant writing purposes. So it does give us more funding and more areas where we can plant, definitely giving us a step ahead of other counties trying for these programs. What we have here is the Imperial Valley Urban Forest Map, and what you can see is this is the beginning stages of what we're looking at doing. We will plot every tree that's planted, which will near 3,000 trees, and each tree will be marked and recorded for all of their environmental benefits, taking into consideration greenhouse gas, pollution levels, and the monetary value of each tree. And what you'll see here is we actually planted that tree, almost 2 years ago. That's kind of crazy. We planted that tree, it's a Delbergia, and that was at Buckland Park during Arbor Day of last year. And that tree, the right-hand side you'll see was logged on the map. So if you go onto our public tree map today, you can click on that tree and you can see a live statistic of how the tree is growing and the monetary benefit that it has today and 40 years out. So it's a projection of exactly how much your tree is worth the day that you plant it and the day it's essentially done growing.
So is that tree that Mr. Cardenas planted is still alive?
I'd rather not. No, I'm kidding. Of course it's alive, yes.
They've had to switch it out a few times, but still there.
Luckily, working with the city has been amazing about watering agreements. So the park staff actually designates one person to go out in the parks and water these trees on a weekly basis. And as you know, watering is a huge issue in the valley during the summer. So we water our trees sometimes 3 times a week, and they're monitored very, very closely to make sure we don't lose any trees. And if we do, we take all the steps necessary to remove the tree as soon as possible and replace it, which is an amazing portion of this grant, as well as working with good nurseries that allow us that 1-year return policy, which is kind of ridiculous to be able to remove the tree and replant it. It's not really heard of in any other county, but because El Centro is such a tight-knit community, I found that working with nurseries is a lot easier. So it's great.
So related to that, the private residents that get a tree, are they going to be provided some kind of advisements, trainings to teach them how to for the trees to survive? And is there expectations that they're gonna give something in return in terms of caring of the tree?
Of course. So as I mentioned, we're still in the planning phases of that specific grant, but we conceptually decided that we would have tree advocates, which are tree stewards in kind of the phase 2. They're further trained and given some more expertise. They will go out in the field and conduct educational training. So every person that receives a tree, part of the trade-off is, although we give them the tree for free, they also have to go through our education program. So they have to learn how to properly select, plant, and maintain a tree, and then we will monitor the trees long-term. What we are asking for possibly from the homeowner is a watering agreement. So an agreement that the day the tree is planted, it essentially becomes that homeowner's property and they're expected to keep it alive. That is something we still kind of have to work through and decide if that's the best route for the foundation to go, but these are all things we're considering.
Great.
And the last slide here, we have kind of the overall vision for the urban forestry program. So when I mentioned the Imperial Valley Urban Forest Program, that is all 3 grants separately included as under one wing. So what we have is the 3 grants, as I mentioned, that are already funded and have already began. And then we have the option for additional funding. So another issue that has been discussed with the council is dead trees and how to properly remove them in the city and where the funding is for that. Unfortunately, right now, CAL FIRE does not offer any kind of funding for it, and they do not condone us using our removing trees as matched. But we do have a few leads on kind of working with maybe some irrigation districts and waters to try to see if we can have some money donated and some programs created to remove these trees. So although I'm not sure that we can find some public government money for it, we might be able to go into the private sector and find some companies that are willing to donate either labor, time, money, something to help us remove some of these trees. Because as we expand this program, it's incredibly important for a healthy urban forest to remove some of these large dead trees that need to be assessed. And then the last little portion here, you'll see that we all have alternative funding. So through that, as I mentioned, we can go to the private sector and kind of start asking the community what they'd like to see out of the program in itself. So as we expand and as we start education and we kind of get our name out there, the idea is that the Imperial Valley Urban Forest will become a program that people know and they love, and they're willing to not only volunteer but also give towards the program. So we're looking to make sure that these grants don't just last through the term of their agreement, which is 2022 actually, but also long after that, so we can keep this urban forest growing. And that's it. Any questions?
Callie, is there any opportunity to utilize this grant where maybe from a private sector standpoint or private citizens do some kind of like an adopt a tree program where maybe there's some a monetary, because we're talking about tagging the trees and putting them into the system. Could we have a program and can we incorporate that where maybe just a regular citizen might say for $25 they can adopt that tree and become part of the legacy of that tree in the system? Is that something that we might be able to look at?
Yes, of course. So the great thing about, first of all, working with CAL FIRE programming is that they're very flexible in exactly what we do. We promise a number of deliverables, and although we have to meet those deliverables, we're also flexible in how we go about meeting that goal. So one of those ways, personally, I believe to make these grants work is to kind of look at what previous grants have been done in other partnering cities or, like LA, for example, Sacramento, programs that have had very successful CAL FIRE grants. I have seen this done before, and so that's something that when we get into this next stage of kind of getting on the ground and doing the work of this grant, we'll look into doing things like that and kind of looking to our sister organizations to ask them how they went about doing this and what their success rate was to make sure that it works for the Valley. That's a wonderful idea.
I have a couple comments, Mayor Pro Tem.
Go ahead.
All right. I just wanted to say, this is actually an amazing grant. I mean, the fact that we're going to be planting 3,000 trees over the next 3 to 4 years in our city is pretty amazing. And so I do want to recognize Callie Lagakis for her passion and her talent when it comes to looking for grants. But we've been really busy at our community foundation because we have a tremendous task ahead of us, and that's planting 1,000 of those trees on private land, which is going to be very, very interesting and challenging. I want to thank Centro staff, especially Stacy and Adriana, for helping us out. But here in the next 3 years, we'll be getting really busy on planting these trees. And I also want to just share with Mr. Chris Lagakis that you have an amazing, talented, passionate young daughter. and I want to thank her for everything that she's done for this community. So there'll be more to follow, especially on the Community Foundation side, and we're going to be coming out with some press releases and stuff like that, and educating the public and maybe taking into account maybe Councilmember Jackson's comments as well. So thank you so much. And then also want to
Thank you.
appreciate Councilmember Silva also for highlighting the importance of the Spanish-speaking education part of it, that we make sure we address that as well.
Thank you.
Mayor Walker, any comments?
Yes, thank you. Excellent presentation, and I want to thank, in particular, the city clerk's office for sending me all of the presentations in advance of the meeting. One of the questions that I had, and maybe this was covered a little bit, the city has a huge problem with dead trees that exist on private property. And is there any funding available, or is there anything that we can do to maybe get resources to those folks for those trees to be safely removed, or get, at a minimum, get information out to the public, because we really do see this not only as a community enhancement issue, because the dead trees are just not very appealing, but also a safety issue with regard to blowing over, or limbs falling off, or catching fire or something. So what is it that we can do with regard to the dead trees that are existing throughout the city?
So as I mentioned earlier, it is very difficult to find funding for removing dead trees. But as you mentioned, at a minimum, we can provide that educational training. So part of our tree steward training does include how to properly identify a dead tree and what to do if you get to that stage you need to remove your tree. But going a step further, we'd like to include principles like you mentioned in our program through possibly private funding. So right now, as far as going through government public funding, I have not found an agency that's willing to put money forward towards that. But there are private companies, and there have been successful cities that do implement removing dead tree type programs through privately funded organizations. So that's something we definitely will look into, because I wholeheartedly agree that that is part of a healthy urban forest, is removing the dead trees.
That would be excellent. I mean, even if at a minimum we identify maybe commercial tree companies that specialize in removing trees, and again, kind of what you've been talking about, Ms. Wagakis, is the importance of education throughout the valley and expanding the community's awareness of what resources are available to help them with a particular issue.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
That's a good point. Cal, can you please put the slide back where you showed the tracks and the city tracks, where you have some information that Qualaf made us? So, or maybe the next one after this one. So, can you go over that again? So there was tracks in the city that provide the right kind of environmental numbers that makes us more competitive for these kind. Can you explain that again?
Yes, so actually it's the disadvantaged community map. So we use the EnviroScreen 3.0 in our current funding, but this is actually for the first grant, the 2.0. And what that is we look at a disadvantaged community criteria, so a DAC. And that takes into, you can see the criteria right there in the blue. But that's a various number of different things that go into that calculation. So it's not something that we personally calculate, it's something that the state does for us, but we look at that number. And as far as what I've seen, as speaking from experience in urban forestry, funding is given to anything usually above 75%. So in the valley, as you can see towards the left, where you look at the San Diego region, you'll see a little bit of red kind of in somewhat by the border in the Chula Vista area, also in like the Logan Heights type area, but not too much. Most of it's green, and so funding is not available in that area. But when you look towards the right at El Centro and our community, you see most of it is orange and red. So the deep red color, as you see the little printouts on the bottom, that is the highest number.
So the delivery of those trees will be emphasized more towards those areas in higher state of need?
Yes, so what we actually agreed to with this grant is to plant ideally 80% of our trees within disadvantaged communities.
Okay.
However, we do have the advantage of being in an area that is wholeheartedly considered disadvantaged, so CAL FIRE is very lenient about exactly where we plant trees, and most of our DACs actually, encompass the whole valley, so
Because I
we're
think
very lucky as far as planting.
So my question, which you've already answered, I was going to suggest that we identify areas within the city where there's a highest need of trees and that, but this is basically does that, correct? Sounds like
Yes, exactly. So it does, it actually identifies not necessarily the area that needs the most trees, because there will be an area that might score a 74%. So they're not considered to be highly disadvantaged, but they do really need trees, and they are kind of in that disadvantaged area. But the area that's red, that is the area that more than likely will be, you know, high pollution, high population, high ozone levels. So that's kind of where we would like to plant. But as I mentioned, it kind of, our DACs encompass more of the entire county. So we can plant pretty much anywhere.
Well, I think this is fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much for your hard work. I've been there on the ground where you brought all of these amazing trees, and you're just continuing with your efforts. Thank you so much for making sure that we can have something for the future. And I am excited with how many trees you're bringing to the table. It's just going to improve the quality of life of all of our residents. All the little kids running around in the park, they love shade. It's just a wonderful thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank the council again for your support with the urban forestry program. Personally, I've worked with the city of San Diego as well. And working with the city of El Centro, everyone is very accommodating and supportive with all of our efforts in urban forestry, and it makes this job a lot easier. So I thank all of you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5, Mr. Limegruber.
Good evening, honorable council members, city staff, and general public. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to this important item this evening. Before I get started, though, I would like to yield the microphone to some of the Imperial Valley Coalition members for fair sharing of water who are here tonight, and let them introduce themselves, and I will come back and give the presentation to this council. This time, Ed.
Thank you, Wally. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, Mayor Pro Tem. Wanted to dispel, as part of the coalition's effort, the fact that this is not a city against the farm issue. What it is, the coalition was formed to support the Imperial Irrigation District in their appeal in the Fourth Court of Appeals in San Diego on the ruling that they are appealing, rendered by Judge Brooks Anderholt regarding the Abadi lawsuit. It is the feeling that if you look at the decision, it had to be appealed by the IID. And we're here to support the Imperial Irrigation District in that effort. It concerns me as a real estate broker for 30-some years, the ambiguity and uncertainty of the Anderholt ruling causes great concern as to the future development of the Imperial Valley. I think it puts into serious jeopardy investment from an industrial standpoint, for example, in geothermal, residential and commercial development, as everything's at risk. We take the decision-making power, the distribution of the water within the Imperial Irrigation District boundaries, and we remove it from the 5-member IID Board of Directors, and we give it to an unelected body. And I don't think that's the way the democracy was intended to work. So it's an important issue. It's one that's come to the forefront. We are not employed by the IID. We are friends of the IID. They cannot support us in any way. We are volunteering our time and our effort to mainly educate people on what this is all about. The ruling, again, is up for appeal, and we are doing everything possible to let people know what exactly is involved and to answer any questions that anybody might have. You know, there's been a long history of cooperation here in the Imperial Valley between farm, community, and the Imperial Irrigation District ever since it was formed in 1911. In fact, in 1911, they went to the voters of Imperial County and asked the voters to tax themselves, residential, commercial, industrial, and farm. For nearly 50 years, that tax was received along with every property tax bill in Imperial County. So when someone says, well, you know, what do you have? There's no interest here in the water. We all have an interest in the water. It's the lifeblood of the valley, and we have to defend it. We have to protect it. we like to think that, we feel that it's in the good hands of the Imperial Irrigation District elected Board of Officials, the Board of Trustees. I'll turn it over to Wally.
I have a question. Ed, I had a question that came about the other day, and maybe you could help clarify, or somebody. Is it my understanding that due to the ruling, that from an economic development standpoint, that IAD cannot currently issue water service
That is our
agreements?
understanding of it. It's thrown it into jeopardy. For example, I know my 28 years at LAFCO, we insisted you had to have a will-serve letter. And this throws the will-serve letter into question as far as water availability. Who makes that decision now? It needs to be in the hands of the IID, but there's a lot of important things going on. Wally will touch on these with the drought situation along the river. Geothermal development, which is just critical to our valley, employs a lot of people, is in jeopardy over this particular ruling. We, again, our argument is not with the farm community, it's just that we disagree with the finding of Judge Anderhold.
Yeah, because it's my understanding that in that situation, you know, obviously if there's a new development or new, you know, project, that if we can't get that service agreement, then most likely they can't get the financing through the banks without that. So
Well, and that's
it
what
kills-
concerns me the most. I think in my business over the years, uncertainty is probably the worst thing you want a lender to think.
Sure.
You don't want them to be uncertain about their confidence in investing in an area. And I think this, the ambiguity of the ruling certainly throws a lot of uncertainty into development here in Imperial County.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council, guys. George Moses, IBW 465, business rep. We represent over 900 district employees, and we are totally supporting the district with the appeal of the Abadi case and this coalition. We feel it's a necessity that this case be turned over. It's our opinion that if this were to go through, that we're going to end up with hundreds of water agencies, is what this comes down to. It wouldn't be the district. Every water user would have his own agency. And this could be just chaos for this valley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Archie Mays, 2420 Imperial Business Park Drive, Imperial, California. I represent 17 construction unions, very proudly. We are in favor of the ID's appeal and the fair share of water. It's going to hurt, we feel, the residential, commercial, industrial, and industrial projects in this county and cities. It's going to hurt everybody, period. And I would, if the council can see fit to send in some kind of support for the fair share, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Can I just make an inquiry? Madam Mayor, are you able to hear clearly the comments from the public?
I'm sorry, repeat the question, please. That was not clear for me.
I just wanted to make, or go ahead.
Madam Mayor, are you able to hear the comments from the public?
Yes, I can hear them very clearly, and they're making excellent sense.
Okay.
Good evening, council members, and Cheryl, I hope you're enjoying your vacation. I'm John Pierre Menville. I reside at 897 West Ross Road in El Centro, or I live out in the country. And I'm a former ID board member, I'm a retired farmer, and I'm an agricultural landowner. And I'm here before you this evening because I do support the appeal that the ID board has on this Abadi lawsuit. It's very important that the ID wins the appeal. When Mr. Limegroover told me that he was working with Attorney David Osias to get an amicus brief front of the court, well, I stepped up to the plate to help Mr. Limegroover with what he's doing. And We need to get the support of as many people as we can to help the IID stay in control of the water. It's very important that the IID maintains control. It's a public agency with a publicly elected board, and the farmers do use 97% of the water, but the Imperial Irrigation District needs to maintain control of the water. And the reason for that is economic growth here in the Imperial Valley. City of El Centro is the largest city in the county. You guys know exactly what economic growth is all about. When people come here to start a new business, you want to be able to tell them that there's water available for them and to create jobs. And it's all about creating jobs. So I'd appreciate your support of what Mr. Limegruber and Imperial Valley Coalition for Fair Sharing of Water is doing. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
At this time, I want to just briefly bring out a fact sheet that's before you. I also have extra copies for members of the public. Some of the time when you copy a report, some of it gets lost, but if any member of the public needs to look at this, we have extra copies. And the bottom paragraph really summarizes up on why the IID is appealing the judge's decision in the Abadi litigation. What's even more troubling is the court's decision has undermined the publicly elected IID Board of Directors' statutory authority, making it almost impossible for it to continue operating efficiently with constraints such as this. If this decision stands, it has the potential to impact every water user in Imperial County and every irrigation district in California. As you've heard from the previous speakers, this IV coalition truly started because we feel that the Anderholt decision is actually a flawed decision. A lot of us have grown up in this community. We've known these elected officials, but we feel very strongly that this decision is flawed and it needs to be overturned. IID filed its 50-page brief, and it was made available for public review. A very important document on the IID website is literally a dossier of information that the public can look at and understand this issue and the impacts that it could potentially cause here in Imperial Valley. The Coalition for Fair Sharing of Water was literally started by a group of us that said, should IID be the only party, or they are the party defending this lawsuit, but should they be the only ones involved? And the question came back, absolutely not, because this will impact the entire region. And so this is why the Friend of the Court came about. Mr. Minville had mentioned David Osias, who's a well-known water attorney on the Colorado River. I had known this counsel for over 20 years, and I asked him, if we got started with a coalition here in Imperial Valley, would he be available to author and write this brief, Friend of the Court, to come along the side of IID? And he wanted to make sure that he did not have any conflicts prior to this agreement. And after he had conferred with me and said there's no conflicts, that he would be glad to do it. But he did have a condition that there was only one client. And so I had met with coalition members and I asked them, would it be a problem if he had only one client? Because this is the person that would be making payments. We've made our first payment August 27th, which was due September 1. And we have another payment due October 1st. And the importance of having this local coalition is having governing boards as yourself, from Calipatria all the way down to Calexico, Imperial County Board of Supervisors, look at the importance of this issue and coming on board and saying, yes, we do support IID maintaining control of this water, This water is, for the last 100 years that IED has had it in control, has made this valley for what it is. And I'm not going to take up much more of your time, but I would ask the El Centro City Council members to consider a resolution in support of Imperial Valley Coalition for Fair Sharing of Water. And this legal counsel will prepare this brief, and once that brief is made public, it'll be for all of us to read and appreciate the importance of maintaining control of water within the Imperial Irrigation District. Is there any further questions that I may answer?
Mayor Pro Tem, I have some questions. Mr. Wally, in regards to your just effort, have you been reaching out to other cities and county regarding support, and can you report back on your efforts?
Yes, on August 14th, we appeared before the Imperial County Board of Supervisors and gave the presentation, and I had even provided a draft resolution for them to take a look at. They wanted to look at this subject further and bring it back before the full board at a later time, where it is at with the County Board of Supes. I haven't visited back with them as of yet. This past Monday in the city of Calipatria, I had visited with that council and talked to them about the importance of coming on as a supporter of the Friend of the Court. So Calipatria, today at lunchtime, myself and Ed Snively met with El Centro City Council Board of Directors and gave them an update report on this subject as well.
And then Mayor Pro Tem and Madam Mayor, I wanted to just defer back to our city attorney and maybe ask her to chime in. And maybe my question to Betsy would be if she sees any merit or basis to consider this amicus brief. I'm gonna call it amicus brief as opposed, is it amicus or?
Either way, it's a
All
Latin
right.
term, amicus or amicus.
Okay, so maybe I'll ask Betty to chime in and maybe ask if she believes there's any merit or basis to consider this amicus brief.
Two things, Councilmember Cardenas. First of all, I think it would be a good idea to consider an appeal of this because it is a serious ruling, and in general, this type of ruling is not left at the trial court level. It goes up usually to the appellate court, if not the Supreme Court. The cases cited in IID's appellate brief make that clear. Whatever one believes the merits of, I think it requires additional review. Second, the Brown Act provides for you to consider signing on to an amicus brief, which is the request here, in closed session so that you can talk openly about the merits of the brief in a confidential setting. We can add this to the closed session agenda for September 18th. We can also add an open session item, assuming you determine to proceed in that closed session.
What's the timing of when you need this?
Yes, because of the filing of the IED and then the opposing party they asked for a 30-day continuance, this will go all the way up to about the 1st of December before the filing of this amicus brief will be in the Fourth Court of Appeals. So all the way up through.
So as far as the time frame, we're okay by putting this off until the 18th?
Yes.
Could I maybe just ask a question to our mayor? Madam Mayor, do you have any pleasure as far as how would you like to move forward with this item, or any just comments in general as far as what you've heard today, Madam Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate Mr. Langeruber, you and other members of the coalition being there advocating for really what I see is to be the future of our valley. And we know that without access to water, there's no reason for the valley to exist. And we have to absolutely, I think, have a fundamental belief that the water has to be held in trust for the benefit of all of us. We know that the municipalities within the Imperial County use only 3%, but that 3% is the lifeline for every single person that lives within Imperial County. And so I wholeheartedly, personally endorse what the coalition is moving forward with doing. I personally endorse supporting the filing of an amicus brief, and I certainly endorse this council looking at a resolution, if not in addition to a monetary contribution towards the filing of that brief. So I think, Mr. Cardenas, in response to your question, I would really like to see this come back to the council for a full briefing on the 17th and be ready to take action following our closed session as to what direction we're going to go.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Limegruber.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, Wally, thank you so much for taking on this. This is probably the single most important issue that we have to address currently in Imperial Valley. And I've heard people say that if the idea is not successful, then get ready for Imperial Valley to become the next Death Valley, because we will not be able to grow. We will not be able to have the opportunities that we currently have. So I really want to compliment you and everyone here for taking on this task. It's probably not easy for you guys to do, but recognizing what's best for Imperial Valley residents. So I really want to thank you and compliment you for that. And I also, like, as the mayor has indicated, you know, you have my full support, and I think the support of the council. And at the next closed session, we'll be able to see how far we can go. And personally, I think that we should go as far as we can from the council's perspective, or the city of El Centro perspective.
Thank you, council members. Just again, just to add that there's no paid staff members whatsoever. Our goal is to reach the $50,000 cost of this brief. Again, we've already made the first payment, so we're in the process of raising the final $25,000. And we know the brief will be substantial, and well, your council can also tell you this. There'll probably be multiple briefs filed on this particular case. Now, not all amicus briefs will be even looked at, but we feel very confident that there's going to be substantial information in this 14,000-word document, that the court will review this very carefully, and that's our goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Limegruber.
Thank you.
Very, very important issue. Something that we all want to address dearly in this county. Thanks again. Now we move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull a matter?
Mayor Pro Tem, I think we need to pull item number 22, as we have a member of the public that would like to discuss item 22. If there's no other items to be pulled by my colleagues or the public, I would make a motion to approve on the consent agenda items 6 through 21 and item number 23.
Second.
I think we got to call for a roll call vote.
Call for a roll call vote.
Cardenas,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Mayor Walker,
Yes.
Silva,
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Motion
Now, item
carries
number
5-0.
22,
I'll call
Mario Bustamante.
Buenas tardes.
I'm Mario's wife, but I'm also his interpreter, if you need an interpreter.
We will, thank you.
Mi nombre es Mario Bustamante Martínez
My name is Mario Bustamante
y soy
Martinez.
presidente y uno de los 3 dueños del Yellow Cab.
I'm the president and one of the 3 owners of Yellow Cab of El Centro.
Por más de 30 años hemos estado con esta compañía
We've had this company for over 30 years here in El Centro,
y la compañía antes de eso ya tenía más de 20, o sea, tiene más que 50 años operando aquí en el centro.
and before that, it so Yellow Cab's operated in El Centro for over 50 years.
Somos la compañía más grande
We're the biggest company in El
y
Centro.
los trabajadores que tenemos ahí, todos tienen entre 10 a los 30 años.
And the majority of all the workers that are there have been there between 10 and 30 years. ¿Vas a preguntar mucho de ella?
Sí, aquí están mi hijo y mi compadre Ángel.
I'd like to present Angel Robles, I'm interpreting for those that know a little, and Mario Bustamante Jr., the other two owners of the company.
Y vengo ante ustedes porque no sabía yo, hasta hace poco me enteré que habían venido unas compañías a pedir aumento.
And he said, I'm coming before you because we just found out recently that a couple of the companies had come and asked for an increase in fare.
Y cuando yo supe eso, hablamos los tres dueños
And when I knew this, the three owners came together and we talked.
y acordamos que nosotros no íbamos a subir ni a pedir aumento.
And we decided that we would not raise our rates, nor were we asking for a rate increase.
Hace 9 años nos aumentaron a $5.50 y a $4.50 para los seniors.
Almost 9 years ago, you raised the rates to $5.50 regular rate and $4.50 for seniors.
Y nosotros nunca cobramos eso.
And we've never covered that rate. We've never charged that rate.
Cobramos $4 a los seniors y $5 a los pasajeros regulares.
We charge $4 for seniors and $5 for regular customers.
La razón que hacemos eso es porque nuestros clientes son la gente más humilde del pueblo.
The reason for that is because our clients are the most humble members of our community.
Son las personas mayores,
They're the older, our
las
older
personas que
citizens,
reciben ayuda pública,
the people on public assistance,
o sea, las personas que llevamos en las madrugadas a sus trabajos,
people that we pick up early in the morning and take to
a
work.
los Jack in the Box, a los McDonald's,
They work in Jack in the
a
Box
los hoteles,
or the
donde
hotel,
nada más les dan 4 o 5 horas de trabajo.
and where they only get 4 or 5 hours of work.
Entonces, ¿cómo les vamos a cobrar más?
So how are we going to charge those people more?
No podemos.
We can't.
Por eso nosotros nomás queremos decirles que nosotros, Yellow Cab va a seguir cobrando $5
So we just want to let you know that Yellow Cab would still charge $5
hasta que nosotros podamos sostener ese precio,
until
lo
we
vamos a
can,
sostener.
until we can do it. We're planning on continuing to do that. ¿Quiere enseñar el artículo?
Hace poco salió en el periódico local un artículo y yo contesté,
The Imperial Valley Press recently wrote an article about the cab increase, and so I wrote a response. And he actually sent it to the paper last week. It hasn't been printed yet, but it explains the reason, so we just want. Probably don't stop there.
Thank you.
Thought you were good.
Would you like to read this into the record, or do you,
We can put it in the record.
we can just add it to the record?
We definitely need to add it to the record.
Okay. ¿Qué más? ¿Más quieres decir?
y entonces nomás lo que quiero es pues decirles que nosotros vamos a seguir sirviendo a la gente lo mejor que podemos
We'll
Y-
just continue to serve the people as well
y
as we can.
posiblemente las otras compañías tengan otros clientes que yo no los conozco,
And maybe there other companies
que
have
pueden pagar más.
other clients that we don't know that could pay more, but not the clients that we serve.
Ma'am, I was having a conversation with our city manager. Do you know what action's before us today regarding this item?
So you're going to reconsider, right? That's what you're going to do. So we knew that. I can answer you? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we knew that. So we just wanted to be sure and come because they weren't aware when it first came up. No one had informed them that there was an increase. And since they're the biggest cab company in El Centro, they felt like they needed to at least let the council know what they felt. And then when it came out in the paper was when really it was like, oh, wait a minute, all of this is going on. So this was the response.
So the item is the action today is to reconsider,
So then
and we
you
would
would
bring
come
it back. Potentially. Is
Would
that,
come back potentially if you
and
reconsider.
that involves a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, if I may. I would really encourage Mr. Bustamante to show up at the next meeting. The action that's being taken tonight is the council giving direction to bring back the item for discussion. We appreciate your comments, but I would encourage you to show up at the next meeting
Which is?
on September the 18th at 6 o'clock. Señor Bustamante, I can actually speak Spanish. Le recomiendo que asista, vamos a volver a escuchar el tema en la Junta del Concilio del septiembre 18 a las 6 de la tarde. Si puede venir a esa junta, es cuando vamos a considerar
¿Puede
el
venir mi
tema.
hijo?
Claro que sí.
Otro de los dueños, porque yo voy a estar en Oregon.
No hay problema, nomás con que alguien que esté representando su compañía esté aquí para que pueda escuchar
Mi hijo
la
y
discusión, sí
Ángel.
se lo agradecería. Gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, thank you. Le voy a preguntar en inglés
Sí.
y que su esposa, aunque la esposa la puedo preguntar en español, pero lo voy a hacer en inglés para que todos mis colegas también entiendan la pregunta. So when I read the letter that you guys sent, and it was signed by, Yellow Cab, Blue Cab, El Centro Cab, City Cab, Imperial Valley Taxi, and Johnny Cab, and American Taxi Care. I was perplexed over the allegations that are made in the letter. ¿Tiene que traducir eso?
Ajá, cuando yo leí el carta que vino de tantas compañías y todas las compañías de los taxis aquí en el centro, estaba preocupado de los cargos, de los allegations, alegaciones que estaban en la carta. La carta fue bastante fuerte.
Because the letter says, we were not only dissatisfied and disappointed with the outcome of this meeting, but also outraged, for we feel that we've been mocked, disrespected,
No nomás estamos.
even cheated, looked down upon, and discriminated. So I'd like to know what gave you and all these people the perception that the council, when we discussed this matter previously, that in fact we had mocked you and, looked down upon you.
Comenzó that no one at Yellow Cab has ever seen that letter.
Okay, but it's signed by somebody.
Signed it. ¿Alguien quiere decir algo? Porque se firmó o algo de... But Mario's the president. All of the cab drivers know he's the president. He was never told about the council meeting. He was never shown the letter. He would never have signed that letter.
Buenas tardes. Yo firmé este papel porque fue Jorge García a mi casa y me dijo que iba a haber un meeting aquí, una junta.
Let me traducir por usted. Good evening, my name is Angel Robles. I signed this letter because Jorge Garcia came to my house. He said there was going to be a meeting in front of the city council.
Entonces yo le firmé el papel sin consentimiento de mis socios.
And so I signed the paper without even talking to anybody else that I worked with.
Ya después tuvimos una reunión y ya quedamos de acuerdo en no subir los precios. Entonces yo le dije de esta firma, por esa razón también estoy aquí porque quiero revocar mi firma.
And he said, and so then we made an agreement that we weren't going to raise it, and so that's why I'm here, because I'd like to take my signature back. Y usted no leí la...
No, yo nunca leí el papel.
No leí el papel porque el papel hace unas acusaciones muy fuertes
Sí, yo no
contra
leí,
nosotros.
He didn't sign that, they just sort of said, support us. Ni puso, excuse me, but ni puso dueño.
No,
Because
ellos
it would've
le
been-
pusieron dueño,
they
yo no
put
le puse,
dueño,
yo no
yeah.
soy dueño, soy socio. ¿no?
So,
Sí.
just to be clear.
Okay,
Es todo lo que quería decir.
thank you,
So the 18th, we won't be here, but they'll be here, because we'll be out of town.
thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias, señor Bustamante.
With that, Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to, if there's no other further comments, make a motion to approve item number 22 on the consent item.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call vote?
Cardenas,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Garcia,
Yes.
Vegas Walker,
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Now, before we move on, if we can adjourn for a 5-minute break? are now back to order. Ready for item number 24, public hearing. Public hearing to solicit public input on the 2017-2018 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report and approval of the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report and authorization for staff to submit the quote-unquote CAPER to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, honorable council members. As you are aware, as an entitlement city, we have several processes that we have to go through on an annual basis. And one of them is the year-end process of preparing a CAPER for submittal to HUD. I prepared a presentation for you tonight that just kind of summarizes the accomplishments for the year to let you know how we did. The first category we have is the housing activities. We had funds budgeted for all lead-based paint abatement, asbestos abatement, and off-site improvements. We are having some problems finding clients for housing rehab. These three activities supplement housing rehab activities that are currently, we're looking for clients to pay for the activity under the home program. We weren't able to find any rehab clients that require these services, so those funds did go unexpended. The activities were canceled, and the funds will go back to being available for reallocation in the next funding cycle. Next category would be under public services. The council had chosen to support the senior nutrition program, House of Hope, and emergency shelter. As you can see, all of them did meet their targeted goals for persons assisted, and all the funds were expended 100%. As part of public services, one of our required activities is fair housing. The fair housing activity, the funds expended of $40,149. However, it gives the idea that they didn't spend it all. As I'm not sure if you're aware, the first 2 months of the year, generally, we have to pay for their invoices out of program income and up until the point that we receive our official go-ahead letter from HUD and we sign the subrecipient agreement. So they have expended more than $40,000, but the balance of it came out of public administration, or I'm sorry, program administration. As I say, for fair housing is a required activity. We also have under public infrastructure, we had two projects that we were paying out of this year. The first one is a carryover from the 2016-17 year, which was the Maguey Park Playground Improvement Project. As you're aware, that project is completed and currently open to the public. And we also allocated funding for the Maguey Park bathroom and snack bar relocation project, and that project is currently under design. Here's a few photos for those of you who haven't been able to get over there. This is the Maguey Park Playground Improvement Project.
Good, yeah.
Kudos to Javier Villaverde and to council for making this project happen. It was amazing. And I should have put some pictures up there of our city manager on her swing and teeter-totter. As I said,
Looks
this
great.
is currently open to the public, and it's amazing. It's a beautiful facility.
Oh, that should be on the book.
That's going on Facebook.
I have
We got a
pictures
picture
of
of
it.
Stacy, is this being used by the children around the neighborhood?
I'll defer to Adriana on that one. I know the times I've been over there, I've seen a large volume of children over there because the splash, the splash pad is reopened, so it is being used
It's amazing.
especially during the summertime. We also funded the code enforcement program. They had this year a total of 170 cases. As you know, Anna is very proactive on going out and working on this code enforcement program. She had 98 residential cases open and 72 commercial citations issued for a total of 170 code enforcement cases. And just, she gave me a couple pictures of one of her bigger house code enforcement cases, which I believe she may have already done a presentation to council on it, but I thought this one was just amazing at how the difference between the before and after on this one. And then under program administration, we budgeted $99,066 and we expended $88,019. If I could real quickly say, I believe Cheryl May, according to the city clerk, I had done a presentation and then it was redone. I believe, Madam Mayor, you were looking at one that's, we have updated it. The only thing that's changed on it is, of course, the style of it, the look of it. And one of the things that we've done this year is whenever we presented to council, we always broke it out from our entitlement funds and our program income funds. Because of a notice we received from HUD this year that we can no longer draw down entitlement funds until 100% of our program income funds are expended, we are looking at having to redo the way that we do the allocations. So as before, whenever you do our annual action plans, you would specify which program was going to be in the annual action plan, which program was going to see program income funds. We can't do that anymore. We have to come up with a total amount of what we have available for reallocation of entitlement, our new entitlement and program income, and use it as a large pot of what's available. And then we will be submitting it into HUD because of the fact we have to, it's first come, first served basis. You can't say I'm going to put program income on one project. If another project turns in invoices first, that's who gets the program income. So it's no longer going to be broken out by program income and entitlement. It's one large lump sum.
Okay, thank you. Right, thank you for that, and I did receive the updated presentation from the city clerk, so thanks for checking on that.
Okay, thank you. So just in summary, we had a beginning balance left over from last year, $634,567. You can see that we received $463,642 in from the federal CDBG funding, and this year we received $42,870 in program income for a total of $1.1 million, a little over $1.1 million. You can see there listed the public services expended, the public infrastructure, which was the Maguey Park, the code enforcement program and program admin for total expenses of $738,469. And if you take that from what we started, we have an ending balance of $402,610 on the books with IDIS, or with HUD. And then we do have some funding allocated that we've already allocated to the Maguey Park Snack Bar and Bathroom Project. So you have about $151,349 available for reprogramming that will come up in our next annual action plan process whenever we bring it back to you. So staff's recommendation is that you open the public hearing for comment, and if no comments received, to adopt the attached resolution to your that's on your report approving the CAPER for submittal to HUD.
Okay, so now we'll open up to public hearing. If you have any comments on this item? Seeing none, we move to recommendations.
I do have a question, Mr. Garcia. Stacy, can you go back to, I think it was the second slide, where it showed the asbestos removal and the lead paint, that we didn't find any persons that qualify for this. Can you, one, remind me who would qualify, and two, how would those people know that there's funding available through the city to help them in any of these things?
Certainly. The low-income housing rehab program is just that. It's for low-income persons.
Mm-hmm.
The housing division has done extensive advertisement. They've done advertisements and they've done door flyers. They go to events. I believe they put a flyer at the city water bill. They've even at one point did inserts into the water bill. They're having a hard time finding clients because of not only the change in the guidelines, but also a lot of people who may be upside down on their house where they owe more than the house is worth. And we've had, Liz has been very proactive of trying to get clients, but it always seems to be there's liens on the houses or they don't have enough equity, and she's just having a hard time getting people through the program. She has received some clients applied this year.
It's just trying to find clients that not only qualify, but can get through the process as far as money they owe. We've had a couple in the last month or so that just opted to not go with the program.
So if someone was to identify, a lead-based issue or an asbestos issue, are these 5,000 normally enough to take care of the problem, or are homeowners having to come up with some out-of-pocket expenditures?
These three activities are generally not standalone activities. These supplement the home, where people will come in for a housing rehab, say they need a new air conditioner or bring their house up to code. The home grant doesn't cover some of these activities, and so these funds are allocated through CDBG to supplement that. Whenever we do a housing rehab, they test it. If it's an older home, they'll test it for lead-based paint. They'll test it for asbestos if they do a demolition, and the home doesn't pay for any off-site improvements. If the off-site improvements need to be brought up to code and are unsafe or need to be made safe, then the funding from CDBG supplements that.
So these have to be tied to a housing rehab project? There won't be standalone
No.
projects, okay?
And because we weren't able to get any housing rehab clients, these funds weren't used with any rehabs.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro
Any
Tem,
other comments from the council?
if there isn't, I would make a motion to adopt resolution number,
Comments from Mayor Villegas-Walker?
oh, I'm sorry.
Well, sort of kind of related to this is, I read recently that both of the kind of senior folks from Catholic Charities recently retired. Dr. Moser and help me with the name of the woman that made a number of presentations.
Martha Risen.
Right, and I was just wondering, Marcella, if we could get city staff to draft letters to both of them congratulating them on their retirement and thanking them for their active participation in the City of El Centro CDBG program and all of the benefits that their actions have contributed to improving the lives of residents in El Centro.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we can certainly do that.
Very well said.
And Madam Mayor, just so you know, Liz did go up and attend Miss Ranson's retirement party or celebration, and she said it was very well attended, well received, and she received a lot of kudos and appreciation from various agencies.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
So I think we have to put to a vote adopting resolution number 18 dash.
78.
Did you close the public hearing?
Oh, close public hearing? Nobody else? Nobody else comes forward. Now we can adopt resolution number 18 dash
78.
78. Resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro approving the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report 2017 as part of the end-of-the-year requirement report provided to the Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Entitlement Grantee Program.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Cardenas.
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 25, public hearing to consider the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve a 12-month time extension for the Las Aldias Tentative Subdivision Map. Presentation by Norma Villacaña, Director of Community Development.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. The item before you is a request from the property owners of Las Aldeas to extend the expiration of the tentative subdivision map. Just a brief overview of the project. As you may recall, this is almost 700 acres. It was a specific plan that was approved back in 2009, and the plan consists of multi and single-family units, 14 parks, 2 school sites, commercial development,
So it's a significant subdivision map that was approved, again, back in 2009. As per state law, the map was approved in 2009, and it expired, as per our municipal code, expired in July, was set to expire on July 28, 2012. However, state provided automatic extensions to the maps that were still active at that time. This was during the recession and period. So at the end of the day, this map was set to expire July 20, 2018, taking into account all the extensions. At this time, we are not proposing any amendments to the conditions of approval. They will remain the same. The project is still consistent with the general plan. So in looking back at the environmental report, impact report was approved along with the project, again, back in 2009. This item was considered by the Planning Commission in August, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval to extend the map for 12 months. So at this time, we are asking that the public hearing be opened and for a motion to adopt the resolution in order to extend the map for 12 months.
Thank you. So we'll open up the public hearing. Do we have anybody here from the public wishing to make a statement on this item? See nobody going forward. Do we have any comment?
I'll just say, I think I was on the planning commission when this first came up,
Oh, you were?
like 10 years ago. So,
Been a while.
it's been a while.
Okay, so we'll close the
Mayor.
public hearing.
Next question. Norm, I think I asked you this question on another project, but just for, for my recollection. So this is a one-year extension, correct? And it says here on the staff report, a total of 3 extensions may be granted for a tentative map. And they have to be done in a year, 2 year. We can't do it just like a
That's,
3-year, has to be come back every year.
it's on a year,
Yeah.
1 year at a time,
Yeah.
basically, the Subdivision Map Act.
And did the proponent, did they say that they're confident that things are going to move in there, or what plans do they have? Did they share?
Actually, they haven't shared anything with us. I know that the 683 acres were split up between different owners, so now there's 2 groups of owners. So in essence, the map, those 2 groups of owners have to, I guess, get together and, and agree to move forward with the map. So, but at this time, they haven't shown any indication that they're ready to move forward.
And as I recall, initially, one of the big concerns they had was with school fees, right? And that kind of dragged the project for a while. And do they have agreement with the school fees?
I
with the
believe
school
they
district?
did. They do
have
have
an
an agreement. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Norma.
Do we have any other comment or questions from the council? So we will close the public hearing. And now we bring it to the council. Any comment?
Nope, go ahead. Or,
No, I was.
So I'd move to adopt resolution number 18-79 of the City Council of the City of El Centro approving a 12-month extension for the Las Aldias tentative subdivision map for the property encompassing 683 acres of land generally located at the northwest corner of Laboucherie Avenue and Adams Avenue.
So
Second.
Sorry, who second?
I think Efren did.
Mr. Jackson moving, Mr. Silva seconding. Roll call vote.
Cardenas,
yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Silva,
Yes.
Garcia.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, item number 26. discussion and any necessary action regarding the determination of the city's position on the proposed 2018 League of California Cities Annual Conference Resolutions. Presentation by Mayor Walker.
Thank you, and I'll keep this kind of brief. We have two resolutions that are going to be presented at the League of California Cities Annual Conference next week. The first one, and I believe that you have the resolution in front of you. The first one is being brought forth and sponsored by the City of Beverly Hills, and the title of the resolution calls upon the League of California Cities to respond to the increasing vulnerabilities to local municipal authority control and revenue and explore the preparation of a ballot measure and/or constitutional amendment that would further strengthen local democracy and authority. Having read through the resolution, the supporting letters, but probably most importantly, the staff, the League of California Cities staff recommendations, I'm really encouraging that we either take a neutral and/or oppose position with regard to this. A couple of the things that were mentioned in particular in the staff report that were of concern have to do with kind of the ambiguity of what this resolution is asking the membership to approve, as well as the cost involved in supporting a ballot measure. If we look at what the City of Beverly Hills wants to achieve, and this is on page 10 of the League of California Cities report, so that would be page 308 of the agenda. That last sentence, the time has come to allow the residents of California's voters to decide if they prefer top-down governance from Sacramento or bottom-up governing from their own locally elected officials. To me, that's just, I don't really understand what it is that they're hoping to achieve, and it's just kind of ambiguous and seems to me not really targeted to achieve any desired outcome. So my recommendation on this one again would be to allow our voting delegate, which will be Mr. Jackson, to take a neutral and/or opposed position on this particular resolution.
Madam Mayor, I think I would agree with you, and I think anytime we're faced with an issue of local control, and I think this council's been very strong in stating our opposition to anything that reduces our local control at our level. I think it might be appropriate to actually have a position of opposed rather than neutral, but I will defer to my colleagues and see what we want to do as a body.
Thank you. May I? So, Cheryl, I'm so glad that you said what you said, because when I read the information and I read the title looked really promising.
Yeah,
this is good. And then I read the backup, and again, it's like, what exactly are we wanting to do with this? So I appreciate your comment that kind of confirmed what I was reading. So I think that was right on target. Is there anything that we should be concerned about if we take a negative position as opposed to a neutral one?
Well, the only thing is that there's some folks, and again, this is on page 14 of the League of California Cities packet, so that's page 312 of the agenda. We have some good friends and supporters, friends of ours, who are in support of this. So I guess I kind of want to hear them out a little bit, but I'm fine. Unless something, let me put it this way, unless something extraordinary happens next week at the conference, I'm prepared to endorse an opposed position. I just want to allow our voting delegate the option that if something comes up and it would be in our best interest to take a neutral position versus opposed, that we do that. If it was up to me, though, and based on what I know now, I would definitely just say, let's oppose it.
Yeah, I was, and what strikes me is the people that did sign on to this and support is not who I would have typically thought would have signed on this. And I don't know if they themselves are confused, but it's just a lot of cities that I would think would be more in favor of the local control. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of folks that signed on to this who just absolutely view Sacramento as the enemy, and are willing to kind of adopt strange positions on items and burn up some of our political capital at the League of California Cities for things that are just kind of goofy. So I see this more as a statement trying to tell Sacramento, hey, mind your manners and stay in your own sandbox and let us do what we do best. And I think that there's much more effective ways for the League of California Cities to achieve that, in particular through more targeted advocacy efforts, like Mr. Silva was mentioning and Mr. Jackson was referring to earlier. We have always supported local control and had a targeted focus when we think that Sacramento has overstepped its bounds or would make our lives difficult as the local elected. So I think if council is in agreement, we give a little bit of latitude to Mr. Jackson, but unless he hears something extraordinary, we oppose the first resolution.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much for your presentation. Do we have comments from?
Yeah,
Mr.
I think we can
Cardenas?
support that, Madam Mayor. I think you got unanimous consensus on that. To give,
Okay, fantastic.
yeah, to give
Okay,
Councilmember Jackson that discretion.
I absolutely
Okay, so then,
agree.
if we could move on to the second one. Now this is really kind of interesting. So, City of Malibu wants State of California to allow for the local regulation of certain rodenticides. So I'm assuming that this is rat poison, right? And one of the things that they refer to in the resolution is that what's happening is that these bait products are poisoning 80 to 90% of predator wildlife in California. And they've also had this citation to about 10,000 children under the age of 6 accidentally poisoned each year nationwide. So I really don't see anything objectionable about moving forward with supporting this, essentially calling for the governor and the legislature to work with the League of California Cities to consider and implement reforms as they relate to California Pest and Agriculture Code. So this one is, I think, is we could probably get behind and just see what happens.
So Mayor Walker, do we have a recommendation for direction?
Recommendation, yes, thank you. Recommendation to support resolution number 2.
We're good.
I can support that.
Do we need a motion, a second, or just recommendation sufficient?
I think it's just recommendation and direction to the delegate. Right, is that correct, Betsy? Yes. Yeah.
Okay, then we have that. Moving forward,
I think that's,
any legislative action?
no. We're good? Yeah, just, and then just go to council reports.
Any successor agencies to redevelopment?
No.
No?
Public comments?
No public comments? No. Now, task force reports, mayor and council members' reports. Would ask to be brief.
She's all night for this.
All right, I'll go ahead and start, Mayor Pro Tem. Just real quick, attended the ice cream social. Just want to thank Liz for putting that together. Also want to thank Mr. Campos is out there as well for his work on the Brucherie. Things are moving along great. It's amazing work. People are pretty excited about the Brucherie. Also attended the Central Elementary School District Welcome Back with my colleagues, both Councilmember Jackson and Mayor Vegas Walker. So that was a great event. And then also attended along with my colleague Jason Jackson the Chinese American Construction Professional Ceremony in which YK America was recognized for an award. So those were all the events that I attended. Real briefly, I just wanted to share, Madam Mayor, that I made a couple of inquiries with Chief Johnson and also Betsy in regards to a scrap metal ordinance. And that's basically on the eve of us spending $120,000 on our 2 units at the old post office, and then a couple of other private properties that have been vandalized in regards to scrap metal. Our chief did, I believe Commander Rios, right, actually forwarded a very comprehensive scrap metal ordinance to Betsy. And it just has a lot of great elements in terms of the reporting of scrap metal transfers, record keeping, holding periods, payment by check, notice, and penalties and enforcement. So we may have an opportunity to kind of slow down the demand for scrap metals if we considered maybe adopting this ordinance. And again, our chief has done some homework, and so has Betsy. So maybe they can bring that back to us, and we can be a city that kind of pioneers here in our county a scrap metal ordinance that deals specifically with the vandalism of air conditioning units. So I'm hopeful that we can bring that back and discuss it further and move towards some sort of action against those types of crimes.
I think that's excellent, Alex, and I do appreciate you've just your advocacy on this issue and moving it forward with assistance from the ECPD and also from our city attorney. So the one thing when we've looked at this issue in the past is what do we do about folks taking the product into Mexico? So I'm not sure if we've addressed that and or if we should see if Mr. Silva or someone else could use their contacts to get the consulate's office engaged in helping us figure out, because we can do everything possible, and I thought we had some pretty good state law with regard to scrap metal, but we need to be cognizant of the fact that we live, right on the border. So if folks can take it across the border, is what kind of assistance can we receive?
Good point. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Just a couple real quick things. As my colleague said, I did attend the elementary school welcome back breakfast, and then we made the trek up to El Monte for the Chinese Construction Award. YK America is, I'll use Mr. Cardenas's words, they're like a superstar up there. Everybody loves YK America. They employ a lot of the ancillary companies that are in the Chinese community, so they're very much appreciated up in that area, and we're very much celebrated that night. So it was a nice award ceremony that they had. The only other thing is I was invited by VFW Post 9305 for their monthly breakfast meeting. And specifically, there was, I guess there was some comments, or there had been a comment made by somebody that the city of El Centro didn't fund the construction of the Veterans Memorial in Buckland Park, and that it was all monies coming from state or federal grant monies. So Mr. Tom Henderson had reached out to me and asked me if I would come to that next breakfast meeting and clarify that, which I did. And spoke to the Post and let them know that, and everybody that was there, obviously they knew it was just this kind of what they would consider maybe a rogue member that just has maybe some different thoughts. But I let them know that the $422,000 that was spent was directly out of our general fund, and that was supported fully by our entire council. And we have a very nice monument to our veterans because of it. So we clarified that, and the Post was very thankful that I was able to attend that and clarify that for them. And also, while I was there, I promoted our Veterans Wall, as well as sold some challenge coins to some of the members. So it was a good event overall, and that's all I have.
Thank you. It's good to be back. I felt like I was gone for a long time. I want to thank Abraham. We actually did a walkthrough of a plank park. Also did a walkthrough of our construction site up for our aquatic center, and it was really good to see those projects moving along.
Is that a private tour?
Yeah, of course I did.
Oh, man.
But not just a big hole in the ground in the pool.
It's like his backyard.
And also get an update on the Labrucherie project. So it was really good to actually see them with my own eyes. I've been asked by, I'm not sure if it's the city of Mexicali. Who is it that invited us? Is it the city of Mexicali? There's a four-state economic development conference in Mexicali on September 20 and 21st. The four states meeting Baja, Sonora, Arizona, and California, and they've asked me to be one of their speakers in one of the sessions. So I'll be happy and proud to represent the council on that day.
As Cheryl, Mayor
Yes, thank
Walker.
you. Right, so as mentioned, had the opportunity to attend both the high school welcome back as well as the elementary school teacher welcome back programs, which is always a fun way to kind of bring the summer to an end and look forward to new things. Looking forward to the League of California Cities annual conference next week and bringing back some helpful programs and initiatives and information for the full council, and seeing everybody again then on the 18th.
I have the least exciting report. I had the flu. So I spent a lot of time right here in El Centro enjoying all of the amenities of sitting in my house and enjoying all of the soups that are available throughout the valley. I look forward to getting back on the saddle. I know that we have a lot of exciting things coming up. The heat has finally broken. Although I did take advantage of my situation where I did have some time off work, and I went to Labrucherie. I enjoyed immensely seeing what we're doing there. I also trespassed a little bit in the aquatic center and got to see what we're doing there. Those are some big holes there. I'm very excited about what we're doing there. I saw people working, and it was wonderful. And it's an exciting time for our city. We have a lot of big things going on. And I think that, as a constituent living here in this city, having my young family here, we are just excited to see what is coming next. And I think that I can only credit the fine people that serve on this board with me, with all of the hard work and dedication and the vision that cannot be minimized. The vision for this city going forward. And of course, our wonderful staff who sit through these meetings with us. And it's just an exciting time. Everyone is firing on all cylinders, and we're going to have something really special that we can look back and say that we had a part in it. And with that, I'll close.
See you, Mayor.
Bye, Cheryl. Have fun.
Thanks, everybody.